Congratulations, you've just self-published a novel. Most people never do that. They never realize their dream. It's been on your bucket list for as long as you can remember. You sat down, you did it, and you've let it out into the world. Now what? Hello and welcome to the Bald Ambition Podcast. I'm your host, Mookie Spitz. I am still very bald, and my ambition at the moment is marketing and self-promoting my new novel. Now, I am encountering opportunities and challenges, which no doubt are not unique to me. So I thought I would dedicate a podcast within my own series of consultative selling and branding and marketing and messaging to discuss what it's like to self-publish and self-promote, at least in its early stages. My book is a science fiction adventure, first in a series, Jonnie Fazoolie and the Transfinite Reality Engine. The core premise is a con man and a hustler who makes money from scamming people out of their investment money based on his exciting ideas that never get actually made. For example, he'll get lots of folks excited about a self-sharpening pencil or a biodegradable sex toy. Gather together all the research and development, investor capital, the VC money needed by a startup, with no intention whatsoever of ever developing it, and then simply walking with the coin. He happens to come across a scientist who informs him that the chance of jumping from one universe to another universe in the multiverse is infinitesimally small but non-zero. To Jonnie, that's a maybe, and it becomes his next harebrained idea for a scam. Lo and behold, he goes to try to develop this machine to engender confidence and trust, get as much money as he can, and, spoiler alert, it gets developed and it actually works, and off Jonnie goes into the multiverse. Bravo, Mookie! Now I'm sharing that idea as I'm sharing excerpts of the book, as I am reading the book in a separate podcast show, as I am tweeting the book, as I am reaching out to agents and publishers and people in the know in the industry, as I'm joining Facebook groups and Reddit threads, trying to make some connections and get entrenched within this self-publishing community, build up best practices, and ultimately get my book in front of reviewers, influencers, folks who will spread the word that Jonnie Fazoolie and the Transfinite Reality Engine is worth their time and a few coins. And then, as I know that publishing, especially self-publishing, is pennies on the dollar, that it's very, very hard to self-promote, an agent, a legit publisher might show interest and take it up. Maybe they'll publish it. Maybe bloggers will be into it. Maybe it'll build up viral steam to the point of streaming. There you go. On Netflix. It'll make a great Netflix miniseries, at least. I think so. Now, this trajectory, as I've outlined it, sounds intuitive enough. And believe me, since publishing this book, June 7th, on my birthday, of course, celebrate myself, my accomplishment. It's only been a few weeks. I've got some traction. But this trajectory that I've been on for the past few weeks is hardly unique to me as I'm exploring these groups, reaching out to people. I've made several attempts to partner with some creative folks. Wouldn't it be cool to repurpose this science fiction novel into a graphic novel, a comic book? Of course it would. Who's reading these days? Hardly anyone reads, even my close friends and family. Most of them bought the book. Congrats, Moke. You're a smart guy. You're a good writer. We've been tracking your creativity for years. You've been talking this book up. A lot of them just bought it right away. Favor to me and also out of their own curiosity. Am I full of shit or did I really write the book of my dreams as I keep telling everyone? Well, most of them have yet to find out because most of them haven't read it. Most of them will never read it. And of those who do read it, how many are going to provide an opinion which will move me one way or another? Will I change my style? Will I tweak the book based on their feedback? Do I expect intelligent feedback? It's hard to even squeeze out a review on Amazon, let alone an intelligent or interesting conversation about the book itself. It's hard to read. The book is 419 pages long, about 415 pages of text. It's 120,000 words. Who's got time for that? Thus, my interest in partnering up with somebody to turn it into a comic book or a graphic novel, to which I've had challenges because no one really wants to partner downstream. They want to get paid right away. Pay me, and I'll work on this with you. Okay. That dream vision of a Matt Stone and Trey Parker working together to make it happen, well, that's few and far between. Geddy Lee and Alex Lifeson of Rush, they grew up neighbors in their Toronto Canadian suburban homes, I believe. They've known each other since they were kids, jamming together, starting a band. That dream of that partnership, that collaborative venture where it's not just about the money, it's not just the payola, but it's a shared vision, well, that's hard to find. That's relatively rare. So here I am with this book. And I have to say that it's the book I've always wanted to write. So this isn't just a vanity project for me. I have been writing and writing and writing for decades. And I've had sprints where I've been immersed. I've written screenplays and plays, short stories and novellas, political op-eds, memoirs, Romana Clay style missives. You can check me out at Mookie Spitz on medium.com. They're all there. I think I was writing behind the paywall for maybe a year or two, going back to 2018, where I started collecting all this stuff and writing new stuff. And then I realized, what's the point? So most of it's public domain, and you get 2 or 3 clicks on the old stuff too. And I've repurposed some of it to make it open. And it's all there in its naked textual glory. Some of it really, really good, like the novella Greg's Gift, where I really, really found myself, my voice. Some of it not that great, like A Day at the Races, which is this sprawling attempt at a Pynchon-esque kind of novel. pretty much a mess, but it's got some nuggets in there. I published it all, put it out there because why not? I could drop dead tomorrow. And why not? Let the LLMs, let the AI bots eat my shit up as I'm learning, as I'm growing. And it made me feel good to let it out, to show my own vulnerabilities as an evolving artist. Because for all those years and all those decades, I was never really satisfied with my writing. I felt it was okay, but I was always grappling with this idea that on the one hand, I had to prove myself, and on the other, the glass was always half empty. I was always concentrating on what I didn't know or what I felt I should be doing rather than simply reaching into my own heart and telling a passionate story about my lived experience through the knowledge and know how of what I'd gained living through life. But I finally learned. I'm a slow learner, but I learned. And the culmination of that is this novel. I've written one other novel where I did have a sprint of collaboration with an artist, an illustrator, very talented. And we even collaborated on the scene creation. We would FaceTime and talk to each other. I lived in New York, he lived in California. And we, in a sense, wrote the book together. It's called Super Santa. You could find it on Amazon under the authorship Mookie Spitz. His name is Rusty Yunusov, and we worked pretty well together. But for this next book, keeping his interest was a little bit challenging because the content was my own. The Super Santa was a repurposed screenplay going back to 2008, 2009. We had written that together in the same kind of way. Rusty and me riffing and me doing the writing. And with Super Santa, I did all the writing and Rusty did some of the riffing and he did the illustrations. But suffice to say that Jonnie Fazoolie is my solo project, is the culmination of throwing everything that I have learned about writing, along with tons of lived experiences, into the science fiction book that I always wanted to read. Writers can attest to this, all creative people can attest to this, that they're never really satisfied with the output. There's always the dream, the vision of writing that awesome book. And then there's the reality of actually doing it and the enormous chasm or delta between what you thought the book could or should be and then the book itself when you finally consider it done. And usually it's a sigh and you kind of flip through it and parts you might like and you figure you could have done some of it better and oh my God, you're exhausted. You can't do too much more with this. It's going to kill you. And you're not quite sure if you got this right or that right. And you're always wondering, oh my God, what are people gonna think? That's not the case, folks, with this book for me. This book is my pride and joy, and I think I kicked ass. I love this book. I went to Chicago a couple weeks ago to take care of some family business. And I'm staying at my aunt's house, and I got the book with me because it's freshly published. And I hadn't really looked at it since I released it to the world, maybe a week or two before that. And I'm picking it up as if I'm a first time reader and I'm starting to read. And I thought I would read maybe only a section or two. Next thing I know, an hour or two's gone by and I've ripped through 30, 40 pages of my own content. And it's not like I'm sitting here stroking myself off or pounding on my chest and saying, oh my God, what a great writer I am. But you know what? I'm a great writer and this is a kick ass book. And I say that after the trials and tribulations and my 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 Malcolm Gladwell hours of typing, working. I've cracked the code, at least as I see it, as I define it. This book is the book I've always wanted to write, and I love it. And why am I sitting here gloating? I don't consider it gloating, but the perspective is important because what I'm talking about here is the next step. It's hard enough to self promote, it's hard enough to market creative content when you yourself, as the creator, is skeptical about it, where, yeah, I don't know, it's all right. A lot of famous people were faking it until they made it. I've got several stories about my friendship with Beck, the singer and songwriter. Yes, that Beck in North Hollywood, California in 1986. I'm giving away my tender, youthful age here. 1986. I met Beck, and you could find that on Medium, and I can put the little link in the description here. And he was 16 and faking it until he really made it. I'm a loser, baby. Not really. Seems like he became the big winner. And then a few years after that, in Chicago, Andy Dick. Remember him from News Radio, and before then, I believe the Ben Stiller Show and Inspector Gadget and endless appearances and endless controversies and scandal. Andy Dick. And he was faking it until he was making it too. But I was never very good at faking it until I was making it or not making it. I really wanted my content to be tip top. And here I am, a relative old fart, and I think I've done it. I'm not faking it with Jonnie Fazoolie. I think it's a kick-ass book. And once again, I'm not gloating. I am describing a benchmark for self-promoting and marketing content that the creator truly loves, that the product developer, that the service engineer knows and loves and believes is awesome. And the reason I'm saying this is to eliminate the variable of self doubt regarding the content itself. I'm going into this with the belief that I've got gold here. Now, the challenge that I face, that every creator, every self published author faces, is how do I connect my gold with the micro segmented audience who would agree with me? Something could be amazing to one individual and it could totally suck to another. It depends on so many subjective factors. Look at how people look at everything, whether it is a book or a piece of art or music. I personally despise the band Coldplay, but I would venture to guess that I'm in the minority on that one. They've sold tens, hundreds of millions of records, albums, millions of downloads, filling stadiums, touring the world. Chris Martin doesn't give a shit that Mookie Spitz thinks that his band sucks, but I really think they suck. And I'm mystified as to why people like them. Same rules would apply to my book. I love it, and I know that there are people out there who would love it, but they need to have access to it. They need to get excited about it. They need to see it. They might need to sample it. And then the question is how to bridge that gap, how to scratch and climb and break through what I've been calling the wall of so much content, so much self promotion, so much paid promotion on the internet. There's an illusion that all authors, that all creators feel that once they've cracked that code of writing that great book, as I feel I have, that the promotion part should come natural and it should be as self evident to the universe as it is to me that my shit is awesome. And that, of course, is a total illusion, because how would anyone know? And that begs the question of what to do. And I've outlined some of the things that I've already done and which self-published authors are doing all around me, joining those groups and getting on those chat rooms and threads and reaching out to agents. And maybe some folks are even podcasting their book, doing a serialized audio book. And if you go to the podcast No Hair, All Heart, wherever podcasts are streamed, you will find me, Mookie Spitz, reading aloud, sharing the audiobook version of my book read by me, section by section. I started that this week, going from the first page to the last. One section, about anywhere from 4 to 5 to 8 to 9 pages of text read each and every day, and then uploaded to Buzzsprout, which is my app, which then blasts everyone with the No Hair All Heart podcast, featuring that section of Jonnie Fazoolie and the Transfinite Reality Engine. And why am I doing this? Well, why not? I love repurposing the content, and I love hearing myself read it with all the gloating gluttony and vanity that entails. And I'm learning how to read my own stuff. I'm learning how to tell stories. I'm learning how to make verbal, in a sense, my textual storytelling. I'm using a different part of the brain to tell my story all over again, but it comes out so differently when I read it. And the experience of listening to it is a completely different part of the brain on the part of the consumer. You could buy the book on Amazon or download the Kindle and read it, or you could listen to it, or you could read it and listen to it on a Kindle. And that's kind of interesting. It's fascinating to me, form and content, the relationship between channels and the modality in which they share that data, that content. It's cool. So I've been doing that. I also set up a Twitter account at Jonnie Fazoolie, and I've automated the book being tweeted paragraph by paragraph and line of dialogue by line of dialogue in reverse. So it took me a few hours to figure out how to do this, saving the document from a G doc to a Word doc, then cutting and pasting it into a text doc, and then shifting that to an Excel spreadsheet, and then creating a new column and using the row function to number each and every line, and then use the data sort feature to reverse those lines, and then pumping it as a CSV batch file into Publer, and then blasting my book every hour on the hour, Monday through Saturday, leaving Sunday as the day of rest and an opportunity to retweet the week's audio podcast. Now, you think I'm a guy who has maybe too much time on his hands. Well, I got to work and I got to do stuff, but I am making time because I think this is an awesome book and I want the world to see it. I'm like the Who's in Horton Hears the Who. I am here. I am here. I'm tweeting every line and every paragraph. I am reading every section out loud and putting it on podcast platforms, wherever your podcasts are streamed. And I'm having a blast. And I'm joining all those Facebook groups. And then I'm getting spammed by folks who say that they've tried to friend me on Facebook, but they weren't able to do it. And they really want to know more about my book. They want to know how I've been writing it and how I might plan to promote it. and they really just want to strike up a conversation and maybe even have a relationship with me about this book that I'm sharing or talking about on these Facebook groups. And all I have to do is friend them or message them back. Okay. I'm sure it's an altruistic style outreach, and I'm sure they're doing that because they don't want to get dinged by Facebook for sending out endless messages and Facebook friend requests because they're hustling. They're hustling just like I am hustling. I am hustling like my hero Jonnie Fazzoolie's hustling, only I've got a real invention here. That real invention is my book. Check it out. I did it. I love it. I think it's great. It would make the most awesome miniseries, said every science fiction writer ever. So, what's unique about me? Well, I'm unique to me, and I've been working for decades to figure out how to write and do this and write the book I always dreamed of doing, as I've been saying. But as far as the world is concerned, I am just another guy trying to self promote my shit online. How the hell are people supposed to differentiate amid this avalanche of content? And how are people supposed to differentiate the good from the bad even when they're exposed to it? When it's so subjective, when people are just looking for different kinds of stuff and have such different tastes, when the lowest common denominator of the content that we're used to seeing is, frankly, fairly low. Who's reading this stuff? Who's appraising it? Who's deciding what's best to make a mini series which costs millions of dollars? Who is going to take the risk with original material? How am I going to make those relationships, those connections with people who have influence, who make decisions about how content is prioritized, about who sees what, how, and when, contingent on other people's money? That's a conundrum. That's a dilemma. But that's the ubiquitous, universal dilemma, not only of self published, self promoting authors, but everyone in marketing. So if you scroll through most of the podcasts in this series of Bald Ambition, I've talked to people in the business, millennials, Zoomers, startup founders, consultants, branding experts, other artists. And the general consensus in all of this is making relationships where the needs of the consumer are front and center. It's not about you. It's not about us. No one cares really about the author. No one really cares about the content per se. You have an audience interested in being entertained in this sense, or you have clients who are in need of a problem to be solved. And in ways, you could look at the consumer of entertainment content that way too, which is the problem that they need solved is their boredom forced away, where you entertain them and distract them, make them feel good after a long, hard day's work. They read your novel, they hear your podcast, they retweet your tweet, they sit back and watch that mini series. That's ultimately what it's about. That's ultimately what can drive it. But all of that begs the question of standing in line, getting noticed, and trying to squeeze through tens, hundreds of thousands, millions of other people and pieces of content and stories that are all begging to do exactly the same thing. What writer doesn't want that Netflix miniseries and hasn't imagined themselves being the author or creator thereof? And the answer is no doubt zero. Finite, incredibly finite output and near infinite input. Top of the funnel, top of the marketing funnel. You've got that audience of whom only a tiny percentage would like your stuff. And you've got all the content that's swirling out there and a tiny, tiny little bit that makes it to getting formally published, getting an agent, getting repurposed into other media. Lo and behold, becomes a miniseries, becomes a movie, and the tortuous path that each and every piece of content and their creator needs to follow to actually make something like that happen. Think of amazing pieces of content. Neuromancer by William Gibson, one of my favorite books. Really the flagship of the cyberpunk genre in science fiction. Early 80s, the guy predicted the internet, virtual reality, genetic engineering, artificial general intelligence. Awesome prose, beautiful, gorgeous, poetic prose. Won the Hugo and Nebula Award. Where's the fucking movie? Nowhere. Part of me is happy about that because the content is so priceless and choice and original that a movie would probably mess it up. Never made. The Nelson DeMille novel, The Gold Coast, comes to mind. And there's probably not a season in Hollywood where you don't read about it in Variety magazine, where they're not casting for it, or there's a new screenplay floating around, waiting to be optioned or already optioned, and it's draft number 75, and then they bring in a new director and they lose the director, and it's never been made. And that's another awesome book that I'm so thankful they didn't make a movie because it's so priceless. Nelson DeMille's The Gold Coast. Check it out. It's The Great Gatsby meets The Godfather, for real. And it's better than both of those books. And you can call me names if you don't think so. What I'm trying to get to is the obvious, that although there are billions of dollars now being spent on content and billions of people inhaling that content, there's a proportionally ginormous number of creators flooding the zone with creative content. It's total chaos. The scams abound. And there's a particular sense of maudlin tragedy and delicacy, if you will, to this particular area of human endeavor. As I began this podcast, everyone's got that book in their bucket list, the book they always wanted to write. There's this sentimental approach to writing a book. It seems to be like a last will and testament, if you will, a justification for our existence and proof positive that we're worthy. if you can write a book. That goes back to elementary school. I'm quite sure that the Zoomers and certainly the Gen Alphas who are digital natives and probably don't even interact with hard copy books don't appreciate. It's not the same when you download a Kindle. It's analogous to streaming content now in music, movies too. Media used to have a physicality to it. Back in the day, you'd buy some vinyl, right? And you would look at the liner notes and see the cool cover photo. Music was a physical object. Movies came in cassette format, CDs, DVDs. They were physical. Books are physical. Amazon, KDP, soft copy. My book came out in soft copy. People have gotten it shipped to their home. It's a physical object. I did the Kindle version too. You can download that. It's not the same. But what I'm getting at here is the impermanence and the virtual modality of creative content these days. It's expendable. It's immediate. Nobody cares. Yet everybody cares because everyone is into their latest TV show. The Three Body Problem. Look at that. Huge success. Big old sprawling novels. Netflix miniseries. Best-selling novel. Hit of a miniseries. Win, win, win. But how many three body problems do you get in a digital generation? And then we're almost reaching the point now that AI is around. Why pay the writers for original content? Why should the studios and distributors fork over the green when a bot can crank some of this shit out and you just kind of pay your LLM licensing fee, right? Sure, you need some human oversight, but we really are reaching that tipping point. It's already happening on Spotify. Ghost musicians are writing similar kinds of content to air quote real musicians. So they don't have to pay. So Spotify doesn't have to pay royalties. And we're just a few months, a year, 2 years from the bots creating that music from scratch with prompts. So, wow, I picked the perfect time to self-publish my dream book. So, what to do? If this is meant as a survival guide for the self-published author, I'm not really helping much now, am I? So I think lesson one, at least the one that I'm interpolating here, is curb your enthusiasm, manage your expectations, and most significantly, take intrinsic delight in the creative process, in your learning, and in your own joy at being a creator. My book here validates me. It validates me in the sense that I had that bucket list dream. When I was 21, 22 years old, I read Fyodor Dostoevsky's Notes from Underground. And it came together like a lightning bolt, blasting a Rubik's Cube into the solution. Where I was a little bit lost at sea. I was a physics major. I was fascinated by science. I felt a little bit ceilinged out by the math. I was really good at math, but I wasn't great, and I certainly wasn't phenomenal, and I definitely wasn't world class. And I knew that I would make a mediocre physicist at best, and that after a lot of struggle. And then I got into psychology because I felt that, well, we understand the world through our own minds. And if we can understand our minds, then we can understand the world. And then I realized that the underpinning of a lot of psychology and science and math was philosophical. Like the why behind what we do is, in a sense, more important than the minutia of the what. And then I read Dostoevsky, and this guy, he's got the first person narrator going on. It's a characterization. And this guy is riffing on science and math and philosophy and politics and religion, and he's doing it within the dramatic arc of a compelling self analysis and story through an existential lens. Oh my fucking God. I know the purpose of my life. Boom. And ever since then, I wanted to be a writer. And then I got exposed to big, sprawling encyclopedic novels that I had a hankering for. Thomas Pynchon, and then later even David Foster Wallace. Wow, they make my head explode. I want to be just like them when I grow up. And as I mentioned on another podcast, you got to be careful emulating your heroes because you're not them, they're not you, and you got your own way of doing business. So I might have gone down some dead ends and I learned a few things along the way. And you could see some of the fossilized curios on my Medium platform. Some of it good, some of it bad, most of it mixed. And then fast forward to only about a month ago, and I finally wrote the book that I always wanted to write. And now I sit here and I ask myself, okay, what next? And I'm going through the motions, as I mentioned, but nothing compares to the actual joy of the creativity and the joy of simply doing it and releasing it to the world. The joy of talking about this tightly wound, knotted pretzel of self promotion in 2025. In this era between the internet exploding with content and the AI algorithm and bots not sophisticated yet and not plugged in enough yet to really connect content with the people who would love that content. Because I think that's where we're ultimately headed. This self-promotion stuff is kind of bullshit. You're struggling and hustling and swimming upstream. You're working your way through the hustlers who are hustling you with your own hustle. And you're standing in line and you're knocking on doors and you're trying to create relationships. And all of this is really the way to do it. What the hell else are you going to do? But I can imagine a time in the not too distant future where, the bots who will have ubiquitous access to content will scan my shit and they'll say, wow, Mookie did figure it out in the realm of hard science fiction and humor and romance and satire. This guy wrote one hell of a book, and based on the profiles and preferences and prior reading habits and comments and likes of 0.0000165% of the internet population, of which 0.00037 of the reading and even science fiction population would lose their shit over my shit. They would love it. They would get it. They're wired like I am, and they will be like, bravo, Mook. I can't wait to read your next one. I want to talk to you about this one. I'll listen to your podcast. I'll buy your next book. And hell yeah to the miniseries. But we're not there yet now, are we? And you could say it's violative to even get there because then the bots will be creeping around and be in full control because that's the compromise we've had to make since the beginning of the internet, right? Like, for the convenience of handling all of your bills and banking online, you're throwing your shit out there. And for the convenience of getting from here to there, you're summoning and getting into a car with a stranger, and soon a car without even a driver who will take you where you want to go. So we've made that bargain with the privacy devil, that we will give up our privacy and our personal information in exchange for the convenience of the algorithms and the apps to make our lives oh so much easier. Toilet paper arrives 12 hours after I tap my app. Wow, that's pretty good. But again, in exchange for that, I'm giving up my info, and I'm paying for it in so many other ways, including the retail stores that have once been all around me are now gone. So again, there's a give and take with everything that's happened. And as far as publishing goes, no, you don't need to wait for that agent to hustle you, and you don't need to go through 100 rounds of editing, and you don't really need to listen to anybody. So whether you're publishing a piece of shit or a masterpiece, you're literally about 2 or 3 days only from uploading your PDF to KDP and having your dream book sit there on your desk looking at you. But again, this is the survivor's guide to the people who did that. Bravo to you. Congratulations. You wrote it, you uploaded it, and now it's looking at you. But how do you get other people to look at it? Well, that's what I've been ranting about for the last 45 minutes, which is it ain't that easy. And is there a silver bullet? No. And what am I doing? Well, I'll keep plodding along and I'll keep reaching out. My Twitter account, I'm friending and following the publishing houses and the comic art places, and I'm reaching out to people I know who might know people in the industry for advice. And when all else fails or is indefinitely delayed, here's the thing, folks. This is my takeaway as to how to survive self-publishing and self-promoting, which is just closing your eyes, inhaling and exhaling, turning around and opening up that fresh document and writing your next damn book. Keep going, keep crafting, keep thinking, keep typing, keep creating, regardless of the traction you do or don't get. Because if you don't intrinsically love this crazy process of writing a story that satisfies you and that acts as an emotional catharsis for your own life and lived experiences, if the act itself isn't thrilling you and motivating you in and of itself, then frankly, the biggest takeaway of this survival guide is do something else, because there are no assurances. And it's doubly and triply tragic if you turn your passion and your heartfelt desire into a cataclysmically disappointing experience because you're not successful or you underperform in areas that have absolutely nothing to do with the creation of the content itself. That sounds self-evident, but these days it isn't. We attach conditions on success and happiness. And of course, you might have written your book to be read and to become a bestseller and to create that Netflix miniseries. And if you did that, then God bless you. And keep going and keep fighting and keep marketing and never give up on that front either. But you're not the type of writer I'm talking about. And you don't need this survival guide, because for you, it's really not about the book itself. It's about your success and what you can do with it. And once again, God bless you. But I'm coming at this from the vantage point of someone who loves this process and who loves writing and who loves my damn book, and who takes such pride in finally cracking my own personal code and exceeding my own expectations in this crazy, hyper, super duper low ROI, almost zero return on investment endeavor, which is the insanity of pouring 1,000 hours into a project with absolutely no assurance of even getting a penny back. And that, in and of itself, is a beautiful thing. And yes, I want to be successful with this. And yes, I want to monetize it to the point where I could just do this, because I have to do other things. But that's not the point either. The point is just you did it, and you're doing it, and you're going to do more of it. And my last point as an addendum to all this, the denouement to this rant is, and I truly believe this, if your intent is pure and if your passion is genuine, and if you pour your heart and your soul into a project, you will benefit. There is such a thing as karma. It's not like there's a bunch of elves with Microsoft Excel spreadsheets who are keeping track of all this. It's energy out and energy in. And when you believe and when you do it, and you do it with boundless passion and enthusiasm and grit, and you give it your all, the intrinsic satisfaction is in and of itself sufficient, but you have no idea as to the lives you have already impacted and the energy you've already put out into the universe. And it's not quid pro quo. It's not like anyone's going to do you any favors, but it's going to come back. It's going to come back because it's already inside you. And in a sense, it's just reverberating throughout your soul. So I hope that this rant did for you at least as much of what it did for me, which is provide its own form of catharsis and validation. Yes, the internet is insane. And yes, the self-promotion racket is nuts. And yes, it's fraught with scammers and hustlers, and everyone's just trying to get their back scratched by scratching other backs. And it's a racket. But so is everything else in this life. Every business is more or less like this. Every sale, every action. And if there's any best practice I can share, bloat less about yourself, says I, ironically, after bloating about my book for this amount of time here. But talk less about your book and talk more about how your book could make other people feel good. And instead of thinking just about yourself and this obsession for getting that mini series or having a bestseller, think about the joy that the joy you have put into your book can be shared with the world. And that, I think, more than anything else, is the missing link. That's when the karma meets the dharma, where all your effort reverberates not only back into your soul, but into the soul of others. You've actually made a connection with the world. You've already made a connection with yourself by writing this stuff. And all it takes is opening yourself up, not by pushing your book into everyone's face, but by sharing the exuberance and the joy that went into doing it so that you can connect with other people and bring them joy too. And I think that's the nut to crack, which goes back to the theme of this podcast series, which is consultative selling and marketing. That'll sound crass and commoditized and transactional, But it's not just a strategy, but it's an approach to life, which is listen instead of speak and pay attention to the pain and needs and desires of others outside yourself and project the empathy to others that you want them to project to you and share your joy in a way that can make the entire world more joyful, and something is bound to happen. So let me know what you think and let me know how you're doing. I'll follow this up in a month or so to see how it's going. And I'm just glad to share and I'm eager to hear back from you. And thanks for listening to the Bald Ambition podcast. I'm your host, Mookie Spitz, and I'll keep writing and I'll keep reading my book. And frankly, I can't wait to jump into the second book in the series, which is pretty much, I don't know, I can say right now it's 75% written, but I said that with the first book when it was only 250 pages long. So, booyah to me, the cusp boomer who can't stop typing. And as you can tell, I can't stop talking either. Lucky you. Like, comment, and share.